The words hit me like a physical slap across my face. Jessica, you need to stop pretending you have money you clearly don't have. My sister's voice carried across the private dining room at Lou Bernardine, loud enough that our waiter froze mid-pour with the wine bottle. My fork clattered against the porcelain plate, Dad's favorite lobster bisque, the dish I'd specifically requested for his 60th birthday dinner. The sound seemed to echo in the sudden silence as 27 heads turned toward our table through the glass partition. Heat crawled up my neck, not from embarrassment but from the careful control it took to keep my expression neutral while my sister dismantled me in front of our entire family. Amanda's perfectly manicured finger jabbed toward the crystal chandelier above us. Do you have any idea what this dinner costs? The wine alone is probably more than your monthly rent. My name is Jessica. I'm 26 and I run the largest luxury event planning company on the East Coast. This is the story of how I let my family believe I was broke for 4 years and how one perfectly orchestrated dinner brought everything crashing down. 3 hours earlier, I'd handed the restaurant manager my black American Express Centurion card with very specific instructions. Decline it when I try to pay. Make it public. Make it memorable. Now, watching my family's faces, Dad's confusion, Mom's growing horror, my brother Kyle's barely concealed satisfaction, I knew the first phase of my plan was working perfectly. Living in that studio in Queens, Amanda continued, warming to her subject as her husband Derek nodded encouragingly. Working some vague consulting job none of us understand, and yet you're constantly trying to pay for expensive dinners, buying elaborate gifts you can't afford. I can afford, I started, but Derek cut me off with a harsh laugh. Really? What's your annual income, Jessica? Because Amanda makes $180,000 plus bonuses. I make $350,000. We know what real money looks like. The irony burned in my throat. Last month, Derek's investment firm had courted my business for 6 weeks, trying to manage my portfolio. They'd sent me 3 different relationship managers before I politely declined. None of them had made the connection between Jessica Anderson, the struggling consultant, and N. Anderson, CEO of Anderson Events, whose $28 million net worth they'd researched so thoroughly. You're going to end up in debt trying to keep up appearances, Amanda said, her voice dropping into that concerned older sister tone that somehow felt more condescending than her anger. It's embarrassing for all of us. Kyle, fresh out of his MBA program at 24, nodded with the confidence of someone who'd never actually struggled. I've been tracking my expenses since graduation. There's no way a freelance consultant can afford dinners like this. I took a slow sip of the Chateau Margaux 2000, $850 per bottle, and let them continue. Every word was another piece of ammunition for what was coming. 4 years of careful planning, of living modestly, of letting them make assumptions while I built an empire they couldn't imagine. Dad's birthday dinner should be at a nice chain restaurant, Amanda announced. Not the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan. Dad looked stricken, his hand frozen halfway to his wine glass. If this is too much. It's not too much for me, I said quietly, but the words disappeared under Amanda's escalating voice. With what money? Your credit cards are probably maxed out paying for this charade. Derek pulled out his phone with theatrical flourish. You know what? Let's settle this right now. Show us your bank account balance. If you really have money, prove it. Derek, that's inappropriate, Mom said, but her voice was weak, uncertain. I could see the doubt in her eyes. Did she also think I was drowning in debt? No, it's necessary, Amanda insisted. Jessica needs a reality check before she ruins her financial future. The waiter approached with Dad's favorite chocolate souffle, trying desperately to pretend he hadn't heard everything. I waited until he set it down, watching Dad's face, the mixture of joy at seeing his favorite dessert and shame that it might be bankrupting his daughter. Actually, I said, reaching into my purse with deliberate slowness, let me prove you right. I pulled out the black American Express Centurion card. The titanium caught the candlelight, its distinctive weight solid in my fingers. I'd paid $10,000 just for the annual fee, more than Kyle's monthly rent. Amanda rolled her eyes. Oh, please. A black card? How much did you pay for that fake? It's not fake. I handed it to the waiter, catching his eye briefly. He gave the slightest nod. Thomas Chin, the general manager, had briefed the entire staff on tonight's performance. Real black cards require you to charge at least $250,000 per year, Derek explained with exaggerated patience. They don't just give them to anyone. I know what they require. I settled back in my chair, watching their faces. Kyle was already pulling up information on his phone. Amanda was shaking her head with that sad, disappointed expression I'd grown to hate over the years. Derek looked triumphant, like he'd finally caught me in an obvious lie. 5 minutes later, our waiter returned, his expression perfectly calibrated between apologetic and confused. "Ms. Anderson, I'm sorry, but there seems to be an issue with your card." The table fell into absolute silence. Even the ambient noise from the main dining room seemed to fade. "An issue?" I asked, as if I didn't know exactly what was coming. "It was declined. Would you like to try another payment method?" The explosion was immediate. Amanda burst out laughing, the sound harsh and genuine. "Oh my God, Jessica, your fake black card got declined. This is priceless." Derek was laughing too, pulling out his phone to presumably text his friends about this disaster. "A fake Centurion card that doesn't even work. That's a new low." "I told you," Amanda said to our parents, her voice carrying across the entire section of the restaurant. "I told you she was pretending. Now we're all stuck with this bill because Jessica had to play dress-up." Kyle was shaking his head, his MBA earned wisdom apparently confirmed. "This is seriously messed up, Jess. Using fake credit cards? Lying about having money?" The humiliation they expected to see on my face never materialized. Instead, I pulled out my phone. "Just give me one moment." "What are you doing?" Amanda asked, still giggling. "Calling your credit card company to ask why your fake card doesn't work." I didn't respond. I was counting down. 3, 2, 1. Thomas Chin burst through the door of our private dining room, slightly out of breath, his expensive suit immaculate despite his hurried arrival. I'd worked with Thomas on 11 major events over the past 2 years. He knew exactly how to play his role. "Miss Anderson," he said, his voice carrying the perfect note of professional distress. "I'm so sorry. I just heard about the payment issue." The laughter died instantly. "Thomas," I said calmly, using his first name with the easy familiarity of someone who'd spent hundreds of hours coordinating with him. "Is there a problem with the payment system?" No, the system is fine." He consulted his tablet with a small frown. "The issue is that we still owe you $485,000 from last month's catering contracts. Your card was declined because our accounting department flagged it. We can't charge someone we already owe money to." The silence that fell over our table was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Amanda's wine glass was suspended halfway to her lips. Derek's phone had slipped from his hand onto the white tablecloth. Kyle had gone completely pale. Mom's hand was pressed against her mouth. Dad just stared, his expression cycling through confusion, shock, and something that might have been dawning realization. $485,000, Dad whispered. "From the Morrison Industries Gala, the Goldman Sachs private dinner, and the United Nations reception," Thomas explained smoothly. "All catered through your company, Anderson Events. We've been trying to process the payment, but your accounting department requested we hold the check until after the quarterly review." I let the words settle, let them process, watched as each family member's brain tried to reconcile what they were hearing with what they thought they knew about me. "That's fine, Thomas," I said. "Just comp tonight's dinner against the outstanding balance." "Of course, Miss Anderson. Again, my sincere apologies for the confusion." He gave a small bow and left, closing the door softly behind him. The silence stretched. I could see Amanda's mind working, trying to find an explanation that made sense. Derek had picked up his phone again, his fingers moving frantically across the screen. Kyle looked like he might be sick. Mom was crying quietly, though I couldn't tell if they were tears of relief or something else entirely. "Anderson Events?" Dad finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "My company," I said simply. "The event planning and catering business I've been building for the past 4 years." "Your company?" Amanda's voice cracked on the word. "The largest luxury event planning company on the East Coast. We handle corporate galas, private parties, weddings, and cultural events for Fortune 500 companies and high net worth clients." Derek was staring at his phone screen, his face draining of color. Holy shit. You're the Jessica Anderson. I'm a Jessica Anderson, I corrected mildly. Forbes 30 under 30, he read, his voice hollow, named one of New York's most influential event planners, estimated net worth. He looked up at me, his expression stricken. $25 million. $28 million as of last quarter, plus the value of the business itself, real estate holdings, and investment portfolio. Amanda made a small, wounded sound. But you live in Queens. I live in a penthouse in Long Island City with a private terrace overlooking Manhattan. The building has a helipad. It's convenient for getting to events in the Hamptons. A helipad, Kyle repeated faintly. The waiter returned with a bottle of Dom Perignon. Compliments of the house, Ms. Anderson. Manager Chin wanted to apologize again for the payment confusion. As he poured the champagne, $400 per bottle, I'd chosen it specifically. I watched my family's faces. This was the moment I'd been building toward for 4 years. The moment when everything they thought they knew about me shattered. I don't understand, Dad said, his voice breaking slightly. You're worth $28 million, and you let us think you were struggling? I never said I was struggling, you assumed. You drive a Toyota, Amanda said, her voice strangled. You dress like someone who works 18-hour days and doesn't have time for material possessions. I dress modestly because my clients need to focus on their events, not my outfit. I drive a reliable car because it doesn't draw attention. But why? Mom asked, tears streaming down her face now. Why didn't you tell us? This was the question I'd been preparing for, the answer I'd rehearsed 100 times. Because I wanted to know who you really were. I wanted to see how you treated someone you thought was beneath you. The words landed like grenades. Amanda flinched. Derek's eyes dropped to his plate. Kyle suddenly found his napkin fascinating. For 4 years, I continued, my voice steady, I listened to lectures about fiscal responsibility from people who have never built anything. I endured advice about career planning from a brother fresh out of business school. I watched my sister count every dollar I spent, keeping a mental tally of my supposed debt, while she never once asked about my actual life. Jessica, Amanda started, but I held up my hand. Do you know what happened last month? Derek's firm sent me 3 different wealth managers trying to court my business. They researched me thoroughly, or they thought they did. They knew about N. Anderson, CEO of Anderson Events, with a portfolio they desperately wanted to manage. None of them connected that person to Jessica, the broke little sister. Derek had gone gray. The N. Anderson account, that was you. We prepared a 40-page presentation. I read all 40 pages, very thorough. You included a detailed analysis of my company's revenue streams, my investment strategy, and my projected net worth growth. You just never realized you were analyzing your girlfriend's little sister. I didn't know, he whispered. That's exactly my point. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you did. You saw a young woman living modestly and made assumptions, and those assumptions revealed everything I needed to know about who you are. That's not fair, Amanda said, but her voice lacked conviction. We were trying to help you. Were you? Or were you trying to make yourselves feel superior? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen so they could all see it. Last year's revenue was $47 million. This year, we're on track for $68 million. My client list includes 12 Fortune 100 companies, 43 high-net-worth individuals with assets over $50 million, and I'm the exclusive event planner for the United Nations, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the New York Philharmonic. The Met, Mom whispered. That charity gala I attended last month. The cancer research gala that raised $12 million. I planned every detail. You told me it was the most beautiful event you'd ever attended. You just didn't know your supposedly broke daughter created it. Dad's hand was shaking as he reached for his champagne. The United Nations? Their 75th anniversary celebration, $12 million budget, 6 months of planning, 237 of my full-time employees working around the clock. It was covered in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Vanity Fair. You sent me the Vanity Fair article, Amanda, with a note saying I should aspire to work with people this successful. Amanda's face had gone from white to red. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. It was easier to believe I was failing than to consider that I might be succeeding beyond anything you'd achieved. That's not true, she protested weakly. Isn't it? You make $180,000 a year, Amanda. You've told me that number at least 50 times. Derek makes $350,000, and we've all heard about it constantly. Kyle just finished his MBA, and he's already informed us he expects to make 6 figures within 3 years. I took a sip of champagne. I made more last month than all 3 of you will make this year combined. I just didn't feel the need to announce it at every family dinner. The silence was absolute. Even the background music seemed to have stopped. I employed 237 people full-time, I continued. I have office space in Manhattan and the Hamptons, a warehouse facility in Queens, and partnerships with vendors across the country. Last week, I turned down a $75 million acquisition offer from EventCore because I'm not interested in selling. I'm building something that will outlast all of us. $75 million, Kyle breathed. I have one question, Dad said finally, his voice rough with emotion. Are you happy? The question surprised me. Of all the things I expected him to ask, that wasn't it. I love what I do, I said carefully. I love creating perfect moments for people. I love the challenge of managing complex logistics. I love exceeding impossible expectations. I paused. But tonight I'm not happy. Tonight I'm angry. We understand, Mom started. Do you? Because 20 minutes ago, all of you sat here and watched Amanda humiliate me in public. You heard Derek demand I prove my financial worth like I was on trial. You listened to Kyle lecture me about expense tracking. I looked at each of them in turn. Not one of you defended me. Not one of you said, maybe we don't know the whole story. You just assumed the worst and let it happen. You weren't defending yourself, Amanda said quietly, because I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to know if anyone would stand up for me before you knew about the money, and the answer was no. Not one of you. Dad's face crumpled. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Tonight's dinner cost $3,000, I interrupted. I arranged it because you mentioned once, 3 years ago, that you'd always wanted to eat at Lou Bernardine for a special occasion. I remembered that throwaway comment and spent 6 weeks coordinating with Thomas to ensure every detail was perfect. Your favorite lobster bisque, your preferred wine, that chocolate soufflé you've been talking about since you read about it in the Times. Dad was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. But the cost wasn't the point. The point was showing you that I love you enough to remember what matters to you, to create a perfect evening for your 60th birthday. I looked at Amanda. The point was demonstrating that family is more important than money, but apparently I'm the only one at this table who believes that. That's not fair, Derek said. We didn't know. That's the problem, Derek. You didn't know, so you made assumptions. And those assumptions led you to publicly humiliate someone you claim to care about. The waiter appeared with the dessert course. Individual chocolate soufflés for everyone, made exactly to Dad's specifications. The timing was perfect. Thomas had trained his staff well. I have a question, Amanda said, her voice small. Did you plan this? The card being declined, Thomas coming in, all of it? Yes. Why? She looked genuinely confused. Why not just tell us the truth? Because telling you wouldn't have meant anything. You would have said congratulations, maybe asked a few questions, and then gone back to your assumptions. But this, I gestured around the table, this showed you who you really are. When you thought I was struggling, you were condescending, dismissive, and cruel. Now that you know I'm successful, you're treating me differently, and that tells me everything I need to know. What do you want us to say? Kyle asked. That we're sorry? That we screwed up? I want you to understand that respect shouldn't be conditional on net worth. I want you to realize that you spent 4 years looking down on someone who was running circles around you professionally. I want you to feel one fraction of the humiliation you just put me through. Mom was sobbing openly now. Jessica, please, we made a terrible mistake. Multiple mistakes. Repeated mistakes. Over 4 years. I pushed back from the table. I think I need some air. Don't leave, Dad pleaded. It's my birthday. Stay, please. I looked at him. This man who had supported me through college, who had celebrated every small victory in my life, who had also sat silently while his other children tore me apart. The disappointment was a physical ache in my chest. "I arranged a surprise anniversary party for you and Mom next month," I said quietly. 100 guests, jazz trio, Mom's favorite flowers. I've been planning it for 6 months. The invitations went out 2 weeks ago. Mom made a small, broken sound. "After tonight, I'm not sure I want to celebrate family bonds that only exist when people think you're worth celebrating." I stood up. "Thomas will ensure you get home safely. The car service I arranged is waiting outside." "Jessica, wait." Amanda reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "I've waited 4 years for any of you to see me. Really see me. Not as an assumption or a project or a cautionary tale. Just as me." I picked up my purse. "Enjoy your dessert. It's Dad's favorite." I made it halfway to the door before Dad's voice stopped me. "You're right." I turned. He was standing now, his napkin clutched in his hand. "You're absolutely right about everything," he said, his voice steady despite the tears. "We didn't see you. We saw what we assumed, and we treated you accordingly. And that's unforgivable." "Dad, let me finish." He walked toward me slowly. "I spent 60 years believing I was a good father, a good man, someone who valued people for who they were, not what they had, and tonight I realized I failed the person who mattered most." He stopped in front of me. "You planned this entire evening, not just dinner, but this moment, to teach us something we desperately needed to learn. And you're right to be angry. You're right to walk away." "I don't want to walk away," I whispered. "I want you to understand." "I do understand, finally." He pulled me into a hug. "My daughter, the woman who built an empire while we belittled her, the woman who remembered a throwaway comment about a restaurant and turned it into the perfect birthday evening, the woman who has more integrity, more compassion, and more success than I ever dreamed possible." He pulled back, holding my shoulders. "I'm so proud of you, Jessica, not because of the money, because of who you are." Behind him, Amanda was crying. Derek looked devastated. Kyle had his head in his hands. Mom was watching with desperate hope in her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive this," I said honestly. "Not yet." "I know," Dad said. "But will you stay? Will you give us a chance to be better?" I looked at my family. These imperfect people who had hurt me badly but who I still loved despite everything. The anger was still there, hot and sharp. But underneath it was 4 years of loneliness, of watching my success from the shadows, of wanting them to know and being afraid of how it would change things. "I'll stay for dessert," I said finally. "After that, we'll see." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't resolution. But it was a start. As we returned to the table, Amanda grabbed my hand. "I need to say this. I've been jealous of you since you graduated college. You had this confidence, this certainty about what you wanted to do. I've been trying to make partner for 5 years, and you went out and built something massive in 4. Instead of being proud, I tried to tear you down. And I'm so deeply sorry." "Sorry doesn't erase tonight," I said. "I know, but maybe it's a beginning." She squeezed my hand. "Will you tell us about it? About what you've built?" Over the next hour, I told them about the first event I ever planned, a small wedding that turned into a referral to a Fortune 500 executive, about the sleepless nights and impossible deadlines, about the moment I realized I'd created something special, about the celebrities and CEOs and United Nations ambassadors who trusted me with their most important moments. And slowly, I watched understanding dawn in their eyes, not just understanding of what I'd built, but of who I'd become. "The anniversary party," Mom said as we finished the last of the champagne. "Are we still invited?" "I haven't decided yet," I said honestly. "Ask me in a month. Show me you've learned something from tonight." "We will," Dad promised. "We'll prove we can see you for who you really are." "Where's the fun in that?" I asked, and for the first time that evening, we both laughed. The car pulled up, a luxury SUV I'd reserved weeks ago, because even when I was planning to expose my family's worst behavior, I still made sure they'd get home safely. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.